Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. I'm spitting blood, I'm sorry to say, but it's been a grotesque morning. An absolutely grotesque morning on so many levels. And you would think that the pair of these two groups, these factions, one from one side of the pond and one from the other side of the pond, were working in tandem together, wouldn't you? And if you don't know who I'm talking about, firstly, I'm talking about Marlene Headley, dragged up to the hilt as her alter ego and alter persona, Ngozi Fulani. And if you're not sure exactly who she is or where she's from, don't you ask where she's from, don't you dare ask. And she's got two great big atlases, one on either ear, two great big maps of Africa. So she can pinpoint exactly which part she's from, exactly which part of her origin. But don't you dare ask her, especially if you're white, my dear, especially if you're white. Don't you ask her where she's from, or slap wrists for you. Well, we've had one proclamation from her today calling for another apology because the first apology wasn't enough and all the various hundreds of apologies were not enough. I'm absolutely vexed about this woman. This disgusting, vile woman who goes under the name of Ngozi Fulani. What a disgrace she is. She's a disgrace to Africa and the fine women of Africa on this International Women's Day. And no doubt the Sussex Proclamation as well ties in, doesn't it? Very nicely with International Women's Day. Because they're the ones on the other side of the pond that have been joining in with this vulgarity, another vulgar announcement. And isn't it funny? I said in the last broadcast that they're going to need their own royal bugle for their proclamations, just to give it that air of royal refinement and idea, to show royalty how it's really done on the other side of the pond. They want a royal bugle. Yeah, it's funny, I said that after the last broadcast. I thought, yeah, they need a bugle. So I've actually acquired a bugle, and it's winging its way to me. So whenever the Sussexes make one of their darling little announcements, we can accompany them with a bugle call. But sadly, it's got to arrive a bit too late for today's wonderful news that a royal christening has happened a week ago on March 3rd. By royal announcement, I can confirm that Princess Lilibet Diana was christened on Friday, March 3rd by the Archbishop of Los Angeles, the Reverend John Taylor. And it was People magazine that got this scoop, presumably provided by the Sussex camp, who quote a royal insider, presumably, one can only... What? People magazine, out of all the magazines in the world, and Meghan considers herself a class act. People. People! People magazine? What next? National Enquirer? I ask you. Anyway, they got the scoop. But the headline was unflattering and unsavoury towards the royal family, and the Harkles don't seem to have any problem with that, even though it's disparaging their own flesh and blood. Headline: Royal family didn't come to Princess Lilibet's christening despite the invitation from Meghan and Harry. Well, we'll go into that later because that's not exactly unusual royal behaviour. This insider told People magazine there were 20 to 30 guests in attendance apparently. How lovely, including Dame Doria of the Wacky Backy Fields. Come on in. Come join our christening for our princess. Come on, my love. Come on, this is a real highfalutin occasion, isn't it? It's highfalutin. Come on, join me for a mint julep and whatever else you're going to pour in the concoction. Come in. Rachel loves it. Harry loves his stuff. Oh yes, we grow all the finest. That's why we got so much land. All these green acres. Look around you. It's like Emerald City here. Jeffree Star, eat your heart out. Oh, come on to the Dame Duchess of the Wacky Backy Fields. Oh, yes, my dear. Toot your bugle in my fields. Dame Doria, the godfather was present. Tyler Perry, Sir Tyler Perry. Oh, no, this is the new royal family of Montecito, and they're showing you how it's done because Meghan's an executive and she knows what's key, and Harry is a man of the people who's down with the kids and smokes weed with all of them and encourages them to do ayahuasca and psychedelics. So, get with the program. This is the new royalty, and they have a black princess to promote. They have a new black princess, the first black princess in history to be born of the racist colonial empire. This is how Meghan's going to pass off their decision to introduce her as a princess and make sure that she is a princess. which is her birthright. And I just want to make it very clear here for any mischief makers or potential mischief makers that there is not one drop of vitriol or bad feeling towards those precious, innocent and gorgeous little kids. Not one drop of vitriol towards them. It's the parents that many of us have a problem with, okay? If it was up to me, both Archie and Lilibet, who are prince and princess by birthright, would have their rightful place here in the kingdom, being brought up in the royal confines, together with their royal relatives, without being hijacked and taken away from us. This is the reigning monarchs, King Charles's beloved grandchildren, who will never know properly and never get an opportunity to love and fill with grand affection, because of the selfish actions of his parents, who couldn't bear to live in a country where all kinds of things are yet to be legalised. Should we put it that way? You know, the kind of things Dame Doria might be smoking in Mackie fields of Montecito. Couldn't bear to be in a place. Not that it would prevent Harry from partaking anyway, but you know, best hedge our bets and bet around the hedges of Montecito, and where little bet can be promoted to make reflected glories of us, those poor innocent children who didn't deserve this, you know, to be promoted as the first black prince and princess, even though both of them look as if they are outer Hebridean in colouring, with that gorgeous ginger and blue-eyed looks. I mean, talk about colour. You know, I've made no secret of the fact in the past, and it's just come out naturally in conversation. I've got nothing to prove, and to be honest, it's nobody's business, but half my family are black, and my own racial makeup, although I don't care to divulge the percentages to you because I haven't gone looking for them, unlike Meghan, you know, to tell you how much percent Nigerian or Australian or Colombian or Peruvian or Chinese I am. It's nobody's business. But my racial makeup is not dissimilar to Archie and Lily's. But could you imagine the outrage? Could you imagine the scorn and the tantrums if I was to sit here and tell you, you know, that I'm speaking as a black man? Can you imagine the outrage? Even though compared to Lilibet, little Lily White Windsor, you know, compared to her, I look positively tropical and exotic, except we're not to use those words. Now, there are several questions cropping up, aren't there? Several questions in relation to this christening. One is the question, why? Why are they being christened? After you spent the last few years chirping on and on and on about being trapped in a system, you wanted to get yourself free, you don't like being part of tradition, the patriarchy, you ain't religious. Harry's told us this in his tome. I don't believe that Meghan is a devout Christian, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. They are free to do what they want, make their own choices. But why aren't they delivering the same freedom to their children? They've just been telling us how oppressed they are and how they are, Harry's been so confined and so oppressed by the traditions of his family's royalty. Well, he's set free. He's free. He's taken his family away from this prison that he was in, this gilded cage. He knows why the caged bird sings, you know? That's why I keep squawking. But to many of us, it's rather a flat note, isn't it? But he knows why the caged bird sings. And he managed to free himself, didn't he, that squawking parrot? He managed to free himself and fly away home. Only to imprison his own children within the bars and the confines of Christianity, because from age 2, or coming up to age 2, she is now christened. Why aren't you giving her the choice? Because that's what they're going to say about why are you styling them prince and princess if you're so unhappy about royalty and you've been disparaging that institution. You can just hear Meghan, well, we decided that we wanted to give them the choice and not take their birthright away from them. Well, you've already done that in many ways. Then why doesn't that same theory or that same method apply to, that same philosophy apply to their religion as well as their royal birthright? Why have you imposed a religion on them? Why can't they make up their own minds when they're of age to discover a spirituality or not? Do you see? Do you see how stupid and hypocritical they are looking? And there are lots of religious hypocrites out there. There's a wing of my family who are Roman Catholic, and I love them to bits, but they're not very religious. They're certainly not ones that attend religious institutions with any regularity at all, aside from weddings and funerals. And as soon as it's time for the children to be educated for secondary school, they all swiftly take catechism classes. I'm sure some of you will be familiar with this. And they laugh at it themselves. And they don't deny the fact they're hypocritical about it. Everybody does it. They're forced to go to catechism, learn about Catholicism, just to get them into the right school that they want to go into. And then, of course, once they've left, it's completely abandoned again. It happens all over the place. A lot, I get it. But there is no impetus, there is no reason to coerce these children at this particular time of their life into Christianity. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure the late Queen would be delighted to hear about it, but also rather flummoxed and puzzled and bemused as to why, what is the reasoning behind this. And of course, there are, if you put your imagination to use, various reasons, including what is demanded of those within the line of succession. And let it not be forgot that Archie and Lilibet are at number 5, and no, they're not, they're at number 6 and number 7 in that line. Yes, Harry's 5, isn't he? I believe Archie is 6, and I believe Lily is 7. But what I do know is that at the time of recording on that line of succession, they are still styled Master and Miss on the royal website, but the royal website doesn't actually mean very much at all. It's not updated that regularly. So we will see if that gets an update soon, but it is true to say that it is their birthright, and now that King Charles has taken the throne, that is the moment when Archie and Lily became Prince and Princess. Famously putting into perspective their gripes about their son, the Black Prince Archie, who they claimed was denied his right to be called a prince. And they still haven't addressed what a great big whopping mistake they made when they came out with that complaint on Oprah Winfrey, have they? Where is the royal family's apology? Where is the king's apology for besmirching him in that major way? And the late Queen, to the entire world. Anyway, regardless, by birthright, they are Prince and Princess. But the reason we have a problem with it, isn't it, my dear? It's not with the little children, it's with their hypocrisy. But I digress. We're talking about the line of succession, and we're talking about the potential, perish the thought, King Archie and Queen Lilibet, which could be in the minds of their parents. And if that is in the mind of their parents, because they're only those few degrees away from the throne, the sovereign, and this is the bit that matters, my dear, because when you're talking about a potential sovereign, a sovereign must be, and this is must, be in communion with the Church of England and the established Church of Scotland, and the sovereign must promise to uphold the Protestant succession. These are not optional. This is not optional. That is what a sovereign must be able to do and must be in communion with. And so, if the Harkles were looking at the likelihood of their own children fulfilling that role as monarch of the United Kingdom and all her realms in future, then they would have to look at that part of the equation. John H. Taylor is the name of the Bishop of Los Angeles that christened the child. And I was interested to learn that he has Republican roots, from what I could see. It seems that he was chief of staff to President Nixon back in the day. President Nixon, Republican, and he had a long association with him, And, well, I was actually pretty surprised to know that stood up to the Markle and the Harkle litmus test of what is acceptable, because I'm sure they've been associated somewhere down the line. They must have had some sort of friendship here and there, however fleetingly, with somebody that would align themselves with republicanism, but few and far between. I can't think of many on the Archetypes broadcast, can you, that spring to mind, or at least not publicly. I mean, I don't care what party you are, my dear. There's good and bad in both. But I'm just saying it's, very much a democratic party favouring enterprise, isn't it? All this Harkle business. And they seem to be rather condescending and patronising to those who share a different world point from them, which is something that's always troubled me, because I think it's much healthier to have, no matter which way you lean, to have a bit more of a centrist attitude to life rather than veering towards the extremes, shall we say. So evidently they have taken this opportunity to shape the narrative and control it from the first formal opportunity that they have with regards to their daughter, who could have just been simply Lily Mountbatten Windsor. They want to make it clear in this branding exercise that she is Princess Lilibet Diana. Princess Lilibet of the late Queen Elizabeth, Diana of the late beloved icon Diana, Mountbatten of all the Mountbattens, Windsor, as in House of Windsor, Windsor Castle, as much royal baggage as they can possibly load into that overhead cabin of theirs, my dear, and then seize as it emerges from baggage reclaim. And I certainly don't put it past them to have done this out of slyness, out of being sly to get in there and do this before the option is taken away from them. Before the option is taken away from them by the king. They want to quickly get in there and stake their claim, don't they? And I've been very disappointed to see that there's been a lot of disparagement towards Charles and the rest of the family, Catherine, blah, blah, blah. This happened to be on American websites I've seen, but, people from the kingdom can be just as ignorant. So I'm not coming for America, because I have many beloved American fruits here, for example. But on these American websites I was looking at, how could Catherine be so cruel? How could Charles be so nasty and not come over for a christening? I mean, these imbeciles, they haven't got two brain cells to rub together, and they've done not the slightest bit of research into how royalty operates. For a start, do they realise the expense of travelling around when you are monarch, or when you are heir to the throne, the expense that comes with it, the logistics, the security, the fact that their diary is booked up 6 months in advance or more, and they're expected to drop everything and pop over the pond with all their security and spend the hundreds of thousands on that for a christening which could have taken place in any number of royal palaces and, churches within royal grounds, any at all, for free and gratis. They have no idea of royalty. No, there was no nastiness. And to be quite honest with you, even if it was Catherine and William who were inviting the king abroad to a christening, it would have been exactly the same answer if it was Prince Louis. It doesn't matter who it was. It would have been entirely impractical and impossible and not remotely cricket. So, completely ridiculous. Now we turn to the subject of Ngozi Fulani, and just in case you happen to tune into this, Marlene Headley, you are a disgusting disgrace of a woman. You are despicable. Do you hear me? You are crafty, mischief-making, sly little hustler. And I've got the measure of you, just like millions of others. Millions of others don't buy it. And I have comments from all stripes, all creeds, thousands of comments going back 3 months now, or however long ago it was, when you stepped forward with your ridiculous, absurd complaints from gorgeous women and men of all colours, all stripes, saying what utter nonsense, what utter tripe you come out with. And you're coming out with it again and blaming everybody else for nonsense. If you haven't heard, this Fulani creature temporarily stepped down as the CEO of Sister Space. I wonder what the real story is behind that. Temporarily stepped down. She appeared on a new interview this morning claiming that Buckingham Palace have not apologised properly. Because of this incident, she says, the violence has been directed to me. No, my dear, that was because of your own reportage of the incident. It was not because of the incident, because there was no incident. The only incident that emerged was one that was concocted by the dubious factions of your mind, your craft. So what I've had to do is temporarily stepped down as CEO. Well, I certainly don't condone anybody harassing anybody on any platform, but I don't blame those who have spoken out in defence of Lady Susan Hussey or in defence of indecency, because Susan Hussey wasn't even a known name, even within the kingdom. You know, you could count on two hands the amount of people who had heard of the woman. I'm exaggerating, but she's not a household name. She's gone completely under the radar for 83 years. So it wasn't as if she was hosting the reception at Buckingham Palace. And even if she was, she wouldn't have done anything wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. She was a face in the crowd, there to welcome you. As many people have pointed out, has established connections and relationships to the people of Africa, probably knows more about Africa than you do. And as such was taking an interest in you, but you decided that you were going to hold her up as some paragon of racism, and you managed to actually get out of them a personal meeting falling all over you at Buckingham Palace. Well, you've decided that wasn't enough. This is disgusting, it's absurd, it's a gross exploitation of decency. And as gracious as that meeting was, that was organised together with Susan Hussey, this is why you do not entertain these imbeciles. And I was looking back on a comment from 2 months ago when one of you called the palace out on this, and you were in agreement with me on this matter. Kitty said 2 months ago, "Oh, River, I'm with you regarding this pathetic apology." This was the first apology. And Ngozi, or Marlene, looks like she couldn't believe that she got that apology and that it was happening. I see this apology as when the monarchy showed a crack in its fortress and bent the knee to the woke and race baiters. They should expect more adventures like Ngozi Fulani, well, as it turns out, actually from Ngozi Fulani, more adventures to follow. And to think that Buckingham Palace has called people on social media who are defending and standing up for them as abusers of Ngozi Fulani, that's an insult. This is a big mistake. No wonder Harry and Meghan are now throwing a tantrum, demanding an apology, which they don't deserve as well. Well, maybe the palace have learned that apologies that aren't necessary, needed, or even deserved are best not given, because, as you say, it will come back to haunt them, and they will not stop. It just becomes more relentless. You know, if you give them an inch, they want a mile. Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace have shot themselves in the foot. And another viewer, Fleece Shawl, says, "As a Zambian, I am totally upset with the apology and I can't understand why Lady Hussey had to apologise." Ngozi Fulani went on to say in this interview, "The service users and the community at Sister Space can't access us properly. This whole thing has cost us a fortune because we had to pay our own PR to stop the press from coming up. It was horrible." If you have to ask somebody for an apology, she says, it is not an apology. Then don't ask. And why does she want an apology? I don't even think that it's the apology so much that she wants as the culpability. The culpability, the legal culpability from the very top, from Buckingham Palace itself, the institution, from the king, so that she can monetize. She can monetize it. That's exactly what I believe she wants. And I may be wrong. For legal reasons, I'm going to say that I may be wrong. She may have purely, entirely innocent, well-meaning intentions from it. But in my opinion, she does not. And in my opinion, she's a grifter and a hustler and a merchandiser. And none of her intentions are pure. None of her intentions are good. And I may be wrong. I may be entirely and utterly wrong. But so far, it is not against the law for me to have a hunch and an opinion. And you, as viewers of this broadcast, are entitled to make up your own mind. Your own mind. And if I'm wide of the mark and mistaken, well, naughty me. How can it not be good enough for her? She says it's no good apologising through the media. She wants it in the flesh. But it was Susan Hussey that she had a problem with. And she got the apology in person, over tea and cakes, at Buckingham Palace, from Susan Hussey. I mean, seriously, that's not good enough for her? Who's taking her seriously now? The one good thing about this is that if anybody was on the fence, mulling this over in the press over the last few weeks, surely seeing this flash up today in the headlines has got to put that confusion to rest, because this is stretching it, and this is what she has in similarity, in common with the Harkles, which is why I put both of them together in relation to each other with their announcements today, because they have something in common, and the palace will hopefully take this opportunity to see what happens when you give somebody an apology that doesn't deserve it, or when you start issuing apologies full stop when you're royal. It is so unroyal to see them grovelling about like this in the pits, and the palace do and did deserve a backlash for it. I don't care whether they were trying to kill them with kindness, firefighting, whatever it was. It should never have happened. And if it continues to happen, I'll be outraged. But they even issued a fresh statement overnight, Buckingham Palace, saying, "For the avoidance of any doubt, we are deeply sorry for the incident that took place and apologise for the distress and difficulties caused to Miss Fulani." Oh, shut up! Shut up, Buckingham Palace. I'm going to write to them again, and I urge you to too. Keep it polite, but I'm going to write to them and tell them to quit this nonsense. Do they want those of us who love the monarchy, us royal fans, to keep continuing supporting them and having their backs if they are going to crawl over hot coals, crawl over themselves, rip the eyelashes from their eyes, torture themselves? Who are they hiring? Who are they hiring? Who are they not firing? Get them out of there, these decision makers. And, shame on the heads of the households, whether that's William or Charles, for having this go on under their command. Issuing another apology overnight in relation to this forthcoming interview. Why are you entertaining this farce? It is absolutely absurd. It's humiliating. Though I'm encouraged to see that Buckingham Palace followed up that statement by making it clear that Fulani broke the agreement that was made at that meeting, that agreement of goodwill, where the matter was settled and it was agreed that no further comment would be made to the media. She is a charlatan. Richard Madeley was interviewing Felony, whatever it is. He was interviewing her and he asked, why is it not enough? Why was the apology not enough? And she says, who are they apologising to? If you're sorry, tell me you're sorry. If you're not, it speaks for itself. The apology has gone to the public. It has not come to me. She says that she expects the palace, as host of the occasion, to apologise directly to her. Well, I shall speak directly to you, Marlene, my dear Marlene. I shall speak directly to you, and I hope that you absorb every word with the intention in which it is delivered. You little cretin, you obscene, hate-mongering, race-baiting, vile, graceless woman. You do a disservice to people of all colours throughout the globe. You put us on the back pedal with race relations in this kingdom, this country and abroad. You take the enormous, vast strides of progression and tolerance in this country throughout the last few decades. You take all of that progress and pull it back into regression. Anyway, we always try and step up to the plate, don't we, my dears? Because we channel the royal spirit, and we try to stay royal at all times, even when things get tough and testing. It's about channeling that royal spirit. So thank you for doing that with me. And I look forward to catching up with you soon. Sorry my voice has gotten a bit hoarse, but I've been yelling my head off for the past hour or more, actually, while recording this. So I've just about lost the voice. I'm going to go and have to shut up and rest it. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Take care, leave me some lovely juicy comments. My tip jar is in the description box below, and I thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Toodle pip.